Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now, and it's another one of my interviews. Today we've got David Adelman, otherwise known as the People's Lawyer, who I'm sure many viewers know, but if some viewers don't know who you are, maybe you can just give me a little bit of an introduction as to a brief introduction, because we'll be going into things more deeply later, but a brief introduction about you and what you do, David, please.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Well, yes, qualified a long time ago, 4 decades ago, in law as a solicitor. So I've skipped the early part of my life out. You can go over that if you want to later. But I always had a feeling that I was going through the motions. So when certain things happened that reminded me that I wasn't in the right place at the right time, I took the qualification and legged it, basically, just ran to the hills. Well, actually, I left the world of law and office work and went out on the road as a lorry driver's mate, because I was playing a football. I was in London, mid 1980s, playing football in a team, and one of the players said, "David, you're not working at the moment." I said, "Yeah, true, I'm not." He said, "Do you want my job?" I said, "What's your job?" He said, "I'm just helping a guy out delivering parcels." And I said, "Oh, that sounds like fun. A lot more fun than I was used to." So I did that for a year or two, and then finally I was trusted with my own van to deliver parcels. And obviously that was a thrill, because it meant fresh air and autonomy. That's the key. It doesn't matter what you're doing in life, as long as nobody is breathing down your neck, telling you you're doing it all wrong or micromanaging you. So it really, I would happily sweep the streets as long as I could sweep them at my own pace, in my own time, and feel the satisfaction of clean streets. So all these people that obsess about how important they are, they're missing the point. It's about self-definition. It's not about importance. It's about self-definition and control over your own time and energy and space. So the thrill of not sweeping the streets, but delivering parcels out on the streets wore off. And the skill that I'd inherited kind of from my schooling, although it wasn't really the schooling, it was my own natural talent for languages. I decided that I was going to teach myself Spanish. And by the time I was knocking on 30, I'd headed off to Spain to learn Spanish, or what I thought was perfecting it. In fact, it took me another 5 or 6 years to perfect it. And out there, when money ran out, I did what you have to do when you're out in a foreign country. You have to muck in and do what they allow you to do, which is teach English as a foreign language. Because Spain is not exactly awash with employment, and it's mainly seasonal, and it's mainly bureaucratic work for the Spanish. And because they dream of working for the man, for the state, which is not my idea of bliss. So I taught English to the Spanish out there for a few years. And the thrill of that wore off. And I came back and ended up teaching bridge, which is another of my passions. So I've got languages and bridge, the card game. Got funding. I'm condensing quite a few decades into just a few minutes. Got funding to go to schools to teach bridge. And then got defunded because what I was doing was actually too popular amongst the kids and too unpopular with the staff. Because when you provide a safe, fun environment for boys and girls, it makes the staff extremely uncomfortable, because they're providing the opposite: unsafe and basically psychological torture. I describe classrooms as basically it's a form of captivity. And the resentment that I suffered from being defunded when I thought I was doing okay led me to write a book, School No Place for Children. And then I came across a guy called Andy Thomas, told him that I'd written a book and I was happy to do a talk on it. And he allowed me the keynote speech in July of 2019 at the Glastonbury Symposium, which is a forum for alternative thinkers and speakers. That was July 2019. That went well. And I was planning a nationwide tour based on the book, School No Place for Children. And then in January, February 2020, we all know what happened next. And that basically said, David, you need to broaden your remit. People were telling me, you know, I'd been studying law, self-educating in law throughout that previous decade after being defunded, because the injustice of it reminded me that maybe society is... the reason I'd left the law was because it didn't feel right, but I hadn't thought it through. I hadn't done my research. It just felt wrong. And then I spent from 2011 or 12 to 2020 and beyond researching as to why law in effect has been abolished. There is no law. We're living in lawless times. And I started to teach it. And then I went out on the streets during the early part of saying, this is all bullshit. The BBC are lying to you. The government is lying to you. I was getting some real nasty, threatening people coming up to me, but I just hand them the microphone. Just there you are, sir. You obviously have a strong opinion. So that saved myself a few beatings, just literally offering people the microphone.
Clever idea. Yeah.
Well, desperation, you know, is the mother of invention. Or I know it's supposed to be necessity, but desperation is also the mother of invention. And then when the lockdown came in and things were very restrictive, and I'd be out on the streets and regularly police would threaten to either arrest me or confiscate my equipment or both. So I thought, well, sod this for a game of soldiers. I'm going to go underground and I'll do private, discreet venues. And that's basically how I went on a tour of the country. So my nationwide tour of the schooling system, based on the schooling model, became a nationwide tour based on COVID injustice and the insanity of the healthcare model. So it's very broad remit, not just schooling, but healthcare, law, bit of everything. And then at the end of 2020, during that year, I'd been touring as David, and mainly in the Northwest. And I was on the promenade at Morecambe, and I had a crowd of 200 waiting for me to introduce myself. They weren't there for me. They were there anyway. And they didn't even know I was coming. I'd been invited by people that knew me, and they said, David, come and give us a speech. So I got up and I saw that there were police hovering, and they didn't look as though they had good intent. So I just said, hello, some of you may know me, some of you may not, but my name is, and I thought I got stuck there, and I thought, why should I give the police a free pass to my name? So I just said, I'm the people's lawyer. And so it just landed on my head. All those years of research, plus the fact that technically I am a solicitor, not practicing, not licensed, but, you know, I have a full-blown qualification, did law at university, did the solicitor's finals, did the 2 years training, and did a year post qualification, which I prefer to not think about. But so I wasn't lying. It was, you know, and I was there for the people. So I just brought those two concepts together. The lawyer that works for the people now, and that name stuck. It rather than me developed a website and a bit of a following, and what I'd been doing informally as an informal course, mainly at my house, well, flat, apartment, became an online course. And so we've got the People's Lawyer Privacy and Universal Rights course. Hang on a second, I've got...
I thought that's very clever of you to come up with your brand name, as it were, when you're literally being hounded by the police under pressure.
Yeah, well, I get guided. I was guided away from the legal profession, and I've been guided back, not into the legal profession, but doing law work that genuinely helps the community. And it feels so much better. You know, when you're in the legalese system, you're only working for one client here and one client there. And basically, if that client is an energy vampire, and most of them are, not all of them, obviously, then your energy is being zapped, and you're both going nowhere. You're both on a treadmill. And you know, you put in the hours to please the boss, and when the boss is pleased, you get your paycheck. And back in those days, paychecks for inexperienced solicitors were pitifully low. I mean, my training pay wage was £50 a week in London. £50 a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's because traditionally it was only wealthy boys and girls, normally boys, but sometimes girls, would go into that profession, and they didn't need the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I was from more humble background, and I did. So fortunately, anyway, I
Where did
survived.
you grow up, by the way, David? Sorry.
Sorry.
Whereabouts did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in a modest part of North Manchester known as Whitefield, which is between Manchester and Bury, that some people pronounce Bury, and it was quite green. It's been developed more now. It wasn't country, but it was kind of green, semi-suburbia. And then my mum decided that she wanted to be her own boss, so we ended up in Salford, notoriously, you know, like Coronation Street territory. And that's when things psychologically sort of went downhill for me for quite a few years, because it was grim. You know, Whitefield was nothing special, but it wasn't grim. It was just okay. But Salford, behind a baby wear shop, which is what my mum was running, opposite a race course, I think it was greyhounds, I think, but and a pub, and with, you know, poor housing all around and dirty air. So it was pretty grim. So that was my upbringing. Although what I did was I buried my head. I thought, I need to get out of here. And obviously I went the slow way, because when you're 10, 11, 12, you can't go the quick way. And the slow way was burying my head in textbooks and excelling at school, and eventually going to university, and I've now filled in the rest. Let me just finish the last few years. So the call for motivational, inspirational information was very loud during 2021, 2022. But when they released they lifted the restrictions, it was shocking how complacent and smug and relaxed people got, hoping and praying and thinking that, oh, we've done it, we've cracked it, we've beaten them off, and that is so naive. It's so naive. Psychopathy and narcissistic abuse comes in waves. It's like a tsunami and then a retreat, and then a tsunami and then a retreat. And we're about to have the next tsunami. And, you know, I'm going around the country now saying, people, you know, just be prepared for the next wave. And so that's where I'm at the moment. And my latest talk is called Building Resilience to Navigate the Apocalypse. I know I'm condensing a lot into a few moments, so you can pick the bones out of that, Tim.
Okay, no, that's really good. Thanks. So, so you've been awake by the sounds of it for a very long time. When did your awakening begin? Was there a particular event, or?
Well, what I would say is, it's not that I was awake. It's just that I wasn't particularly asleep. So I was in a kind of no man's land, and my life was very grey for decades, because I didn't have the passion and the purpose of my existence. That only came through when COVID came, really. It started to happen when I wrote the book, and eventually, after a couple of years of tremendous self-doubt, thinking, who am I to write a book? And turning that around into, who am I not to write a book? Because I've got the experience. I've got the command of language. I've got the experience. I've done the research, because I did a lot of research into education for the book before I did more of my law research and health research. And it was really, oh, I've lost the thread. Oh, this is happening.
Easy done on the Zoom, isn't it? But you sound very much like me, actually, David. Wanting to be sort of autonomous, always doing out and about jobs rather than jobs with people breathing down your neck. I've always done things like, well, everything from sales repping to van and lorry driving, and now I'm sort of a tradesman out and about doing things in people's houses. And apart from having your customers sort of sometimes hovering around, again, being self-employed, I've got no one breathing down my neck. So we sound very similar from that point of view.
Well, yes, we do. Well, this is what's happening now, is that kindred spirits, real tribe family members are coming together, and there's a recognition. We almost don't even have to introduce ourselves. We just go, hiya, and we're off and running.
Yes.
And this is happening so much more. It's beautiful. And that's why I will always say that COVID, to some extent 9/11, but to a far greater extent COVID, is and was and always will be the gift that keeps on giving. Because what it did for me, going back to the theme, and I've remembered the thread, it's not that I was awake, it's that I was never fully asleep. And like I said, I was in no man's land, working out what I didn't want. I didn't want, so I would, for example, when I was very, very young, I'd kiss a girl and I thought, no, I don't even like her. So leave girls alone for a while, and maybe one day I'll kiss a woman and see how that feels. It's like, in other words, I don't do whatever I do. It's trial and error. It's not because people are pushing me to do it.
Yes.
So I've kept my freedom. Never been married. Never had a mortgage. My first car was gifted to me, and my second car was a £50 purchase from Bruce Forsyth's brother Harry, the black sheep of the family. Harry Forsyth, who'd just done a bit of time for fraud, and he was wanting to get rid of his car. I don't know how. I think he knew a mutual friend who was a sound engineer. Anyway, so kind of not grifting, because I'm not a wheeler dealer. It's just following my nose through life with no major purpose or plan. And then I would say the book was the first time, and I started writing it in 2013, I would say. That's 10 years ago. Book was the first time that I actually felt, yes, I think this is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And since then, particularly, like I say, since COVID, when you look around and you see how many people, even in the so-called awakened community, are still flailing about in the dark, it's quite staggering. It's the only thing that I would say, it doesn't depress me. It frustrates me and disappoints me. I don't get depressed. I don't do depression. I just don't do it. I've never have done. But it can be very frustrating when I think I'm saying something that should be blindingly obvious, especially to the awakened, and they're just going like, oh, I've not heard that before, or that's a funny way of looking at it. I'll have to think about that. What is there to think about?
Yes, things do get frustrating, but again, you sort of sound like me, because I was really a drifter until 2020, and it was only with the whole COVID thing that I found my purpose, which is to really make as many videos about as much stuff that we're talking about, this kind of thing, as I possibly can, and to get the word out there as far and wide as I possibly can. So that's my purpose, which I've found since 2020. So yeah, we sound very similar in that. So you mentioned a few minutes ago that they retreat, and then the next tsunami comes, and the next tsunami is coming. What form do you think that's going to take?
Well, there's rumors from China that there's a child killing virus knocking about. Now, the Chinese are trying to play it down, but children are being whisked off to hospital with a cough-free pneumonia. So what we're looking at, and I've been saying this, it's disease X. I've been saying this for a while, that if you add EMFs, so 5G rollout, to masks, to fear porn, to incarceration, it's a toxic cocktail. And without going into too much detail, the recipe, if they've got 5G masts in or near schools, they only have to just switch them on or switch them up, and children will start dropping like flies. Now, what I think the plan is, this is just a hunch,
Yeah.
and on a immodest note, not one of my hunches has been proven wrong yet. I noticed that I was watching Russell Brand interviewing Alex Jones, and Russell Brand said, "Alex, what did you say back in the day that has been proven right?" And I thought that was an unfair question. And I think it was the wrong way around. Alex Jones should have been asked by Brand, Alex, what have you ever said in the past that's been proven wrong? That would be a much fairer question.
Indeed.
So, so anyway, thought I'd throw that one in. You know, when I was out on the streets of Manchester calling out as a hoax, it was just based on 2 days' research. I hadn't researched deeply into theory, but it only took me a couple of days to do enough research to realize this is utter bollocks. This is fear porn. Then I started watching UK Column more regularly, and they were confirming what I was saying, that it was just a propaganda to frighten people into compliance. It was a beta test for something bigger later on, and that something bigger later on is about to unfold. So yes, it's and what I think that they will do is say very magnanimously, well, we didn't really get COVID right. It turned out to be a bit of a nothing burger, but we were so frightened that we felt we had to do what we did. But this pneumonia that kills kids, this is the real deal. And they'll throw that together with the excess figures that they've been hiding. Yeah. All of a sudden, they'll come out with, oh my God, people are dying in you know, so they'll conflate this disease X killer pneumonia with the excess figures and say, right, folks, and probably wait until the WHO have got their ducks in a row. So we're looking at mid-2024, or if there's a delay on the WHO, mid-2025, and that's the forever lockdown. That is literally the forever lockdown. Yeah. And so we have minimum 6 months, possibly 18 months to get our own ducks in a row. And I'm on an emergency remit to remind people, every talk I do, I walk them through theory and just say, look, guys, there's only ultimately 2 forms of disease, or 2 causes. There's only 2. Yes, you can be deficient in vitamins and minerals, but leaving that aside, there's only 2 causes of that I can see. One is radiation and the other is parasites. And this is a message, you know, and neither of those are transmissible. However, there's a complexity. If that parasite has an autonomous existence, it can hop from body to body. And so when they talk about shedding, I think what we're talking about is radiation. So it's toxic frequencies given off by people that have been jabbed, or some kind of intimate contact where parasites are transported. I mean, the predictive programming in the movies have shown that that's possible. Parasites hop across from one body to another. And I don't have the bottom line on this. I don't think anybody does, to be honest. But all I'm saying is that people need to get out of their heads the idea that there is natural in the natural world. No, just not happening. The Americans disproved that in 1918 with the so-called snot experiments.
Yeah.
But in the artificial world, with these artificial parasites, not actual, but in artificially, and the artificial EMFs. Now we're looking at possible vectors of communicable. So the goalposts are shifting, and we have to be mindful of that shift. But we have the antidote, and the antidote is, in a nutshell, self-nurturing and self-love.
Yes.
Because love is the most powerful power. It's not a force, it's a power. We are made of love, and if we can just, do the work on ourselves, embody what we're supposed to, then no artificial intelligence or resonance can touch us. So there are some heroes in the freedom movement, and one hero of mine is Amanda Vollmer,
Yeah.
a Canadian naturopath, and she admits that she was the subject. I was going to use the word victim. That's not the right word. She was subjected to shedding, and up till then, she hadn't believed in it. And I thought, whoa, if Amanda Vollmer says that she's been subjected to shedding, then I'm going to have a look into it, because up to then I'd been treating it as a psyop. I don't know how much more work she's done on it, or what other information she's put out, but it does look as though we need to take it seriously and to find our internal antidote, which is, like I say, the self-care and the self-nurturing.
Yes.
And I have had other anecdotal evidence that people are getting sick from other people's status, either clients or cohabitees. So there is something nefarious going on, but there you go. Yeah.
And that's regardless of whether you've had the or not. This, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've got to say you're a very good person to interview, because every time, well, all my questions you're answering, and every time I think of a question, sort of about 2 seconds later, you answer it as well. So,
yeah, thank you. That is partly because I've done a lot of interviews, partly because I've done a lot of talks. So I'm used to hearing myself talk about things that are, really high up on people's priorities. So I can second guess what you're thinking and what you're about to ask, and kind of answer the question even before you ask it.
Brilliant. Okay, that sounds good to me. So a minute ago you were saying we need to, before the next big thing comes in sort of 6 to 18 months time, we need to make sure we've got our ducks in a row. I think you touched upon it, but if you'd like to elaborate on that a bit more, what can we be doing to prepare?
Well, stay positive, stay focused, because no pressure, but the future of humanity is at stake here. So no pressure, folks. And I know that I would say in one of my talks, I postulated 3 worlds. Essentially, there's the world that is being constructed around artificial intelligence and narcissism and psychopathic narcissism. So these psychopathic narcissists that are being produced by the schooling system, and the rate of psychopathic narcissism is shooting up way above 90%, and it's heading towards 100%. So if you want your boy or girl to remain an empath and to remain part of holistic humanity, for crying out loud, do not send them to school for even a day.
Yeah.
Keep them away from school. And if they are in school, pull them out. And we can discuss that later when we get a chance. So that's one world, a world run by artificial intelligence for artificial intelligence, and humanity sliding into oblivion, being replaced by transhumanity. Not transgender, although there is a connection, but transhumanity. So in other words, robotized humans who will eventually be Borgs, and they'll be born in pods. So that's one form that's one world. Then you've got the middle ground, which I called oldie worldy humanity, which is kind of where we are at the moment. The freedom movement is in oldie worldy humanity, trying desperately to hang on to its ancient values, its ancient heritage and culture, and but to some extent accommodate the future as well, future-proof insofar as get back to nature and preserve what its ancestors fought so hard for and died for. So that's oldie worldy humanity, and it's coming away from the city. So I'm in that dynamic at the moment. I've come away from the city because the cities are captured.
Yes.
And I think it will only be a cataclysm that uncaptures the cities, to be honest. So we're in this middle ground, and then there's the higher ground, which is being cultivated people who prefer not to fight the fight the way I am, for example. They prefer to go straight for the higher vibration and form these little communities based around love and generosity and compassion and all that, and all things organic and holistic. Some of them turn out to be pipe dreams and some get sabotaged. But, you know, so it's kind of 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yes.
But there are people out there that are bringing in the future now. So 3 worlds. So just to sum up, a world which is going to hell in a handbasket, and then a world in which we are fighting to keep out that artificial world from encroaching. So we're blade running, and we're bringing down cameras, and we're trying to live a life that makes sense to us. We're mindful that people out there are bringing in a whole new earth, but we're gatekeeping. We're making sure that this artificial world doesn't encroach too much on the new earth that's being brought through. So we're kind of, we've got our eyes set on 2 different directions. And so the original question is, what would you recommend? Well, first of all, choose your world. Is it artificial? Is it ancient heritage? Or is it new earth? Choose wisely, and whichever choice you make, carry out actions that are coherent and consistent with that choice. As it says in the Bible, and I'm not a Bible basher, but there are some incredible golden nuggets in the Bible. You shall know them by their fruits. So when we hear these silvery tongued globalists talking beautiful language, but then going on to commit acts of treachery, treason, and then you're knowing them by their fruits. I was scammed by Tony Blair in 1997. One of the reasons I came back from Spain to the UK was that I was totally bewitched and bewildered by the smooth tongue of Tony Blair, thinking, oh, well, Thatcher's gone. We've got a nice chap at Downing Street who seems to care, seems to say all the right things. How wrong was I?
Exactly, yes. Well, I was taken in as well. I thought in 97 things are definitely going to be looking brighter and getting better as their catch song went. So it can only get better, or whatever it was.
Absolutely. And so, it's quite rare when I think to myself, my God, did I get that so wrong? So that just shows how clever evil can be.
Yes.
And we have to be mindful of that. So we have to judge people by their actions, on their deeds, on their outcomes, on the actual outcomes. And we have to join in with the positive movement, the freedom movement, and minimize all our collaborative things. So minimize time on smartphones, de-Google them, maximize our use of organics, minimize use of all things unnatural. And if people say, well, I can't afford to eat organic, my counter argument is, well, can you afford to have 3 or 4 or 6 pints of beer, or 2 packets of fags, or a trip to see the Arsenal or Tottenham or City or United? What I'm saying is that some luxury activities or items are going to have to go.
Yes.
And I think people are the kindest thing I can say is that they're being disingenuous when they say, I can't afford to go organic. But the unkindest thing to I could say is that they're lying to me and they're lying to themselves.
Yeah, indeed.
And when you consider that ultimately, if you eat shit, then shit happens, then it's a false economy. It's false economizing.
Where there's a will, there's a way. So
yeah, and also we eat too much. And so what I've done particularly over the last year, it comes in phases with me. I'm a bit like a globalist with my own life. I come in like a narcissist. I come in phases, waves. I do all the right things for 2 years, and then I fuck it up for about 6 months. But I think this is for good now. So I'm eating less. I'm intermittent fasting. So it's another answer to that question. What do I recommend people do? Eat less, eat organic, go 12 to 18 hours a day without food, improve the standard of their liquid intake as well. So water shouldn't just be detoxed. It should be spiralized. So hydrated, properly hydrated, and trace minerals added for alkalinity. This is a recent venture on my part. So water should be structured, so spiralized in some way. You can get a little copper spiral. You can even make your own. If you've got handy skills, you can make your own. Spiralized, detoxed, spiralized, and with it'll then be neutral water, but you want something that's more, that's alkaline and mineralized. So put in trace minerals, and that rehydration will mean that you suffer less hunger, and your body, when it's dehydrated, makes you think that you're hungry.
Yeah.
You get hunger pangs, but 9 out of 10 hunger pangs are simply reminders that you're dehydrated. So rehydrate, exercise gently with a smile on your face, get lots of fresh air, be around positive people. I mean, I'm giving you my building resilience talk in a nutshell here. Be around positive people. Don't people please. If someone is an asshole, either call them out as an asshole, or if you don't like conflict, just walk away.
Yes.
Whoever they are, it doesn't matter. They could be your spouse or your parents or your own kids. An arsehole is an arsehole, and there's no time now for sentimentality. Because there are people out there who will replace these so-called blood relatives and kith and kin. They will replace them, and they will be an upgrade. They will be an upgrade because they won't be questioning your sanity. They won't be telling you that you're nuts. They won't be telling you that you're just a cult follower of some stupid website. And, so we don't need this nonsense. We really, really don't need. We've got a new earth to build, and we've got to protect the planet and ourselves, and we don't need this nonsense.
Yeah, we do. I've made that kind of those kind of steps myself. I recognise the a-holes, as you say, and got them out of my life, really. So, but it is good advice. You can't be sort of hanging around people like that, narcissists and all the rest of it. They're just not going to do you any good at all, are they?
No, they're not. And we could excuse them for not doing us any good, but sometimes they overstep the mark. In fact, they almost invariably overstep the mark, and they dig, poke, gaslight, suck energy. So they are human black holes, and human is being kind to them. Some of them you have to question how human they are, but they are black holes. And the Love and Light Brigade can be very dangerous because, first of all, they're also full of narcissists. But even the ones, that maybe aren't, say, oh, no, you have to learn to forgive, and you have to bollocks. Like you say, once you know what someone is, not who, but what, then you have to take evasive action. And that evasive action can be quite drastic. And if you extrapolate to not just working with individuals or groups, but the system itself, once you come to appreciate, and this is what I teach on my course and in my lectures or seminars or talks live on location, once you realize that the system itself is built upon psychopathic narcissism, then you realize that that releasing yourself, liberating yourself, turning your back on the system is also a massive step forward and a massive gesture of truth, for truth, and in truth. And it really remains to gauge how resilient you are, how nerveless and brave you are, because when you disengage, sometimes it involves visits at the door. It shouldn't, because one thing that the system does is pretend that you're doing business from what is actually your home. It pretends that you're running a shop. You know, like England used to be a nation of shopkeepers. Yes. And it still runs that presumption that you're running a shop, and it visits you looking for goods to steal from you, or vehicles. But you're actually living at home, and you have to remind yourself. So all these so-called services that are provided to you, gas, electricity, water, they are services that are essential, not to be paid for, because essential services can't be monetized. Otherwise, we're dealing with pure evil. I mean, who ever heard of selling water?
Exactly.
Who ever heard of selling gas or electricity? You don't sell these things, you provide them. And they're prepaid anyway. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I know that Richard Vobes is having a bit of a thing at the moment because he had someone on recently. Are you familiar with this? He had someone on recently?
I am, yes.
Yeah, and this woman, quite rightly, and I'm going to look at that video again, and someone wants to interview me about the legality and lawfulness of what she's saying, and that won't be a problem because she's 100% right. But the man who calls himself black belt barrister is being very scathing. And of course, all he can do is utter the mantra of, it's a load of bollocks, it's dangerous, you have to pay for this, that, and the other. Well, really? Has he not heard of the law of contract?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to consent to that, haven't you? So
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, does he not know that this is a planet of free will choice? And what, you know, so, but this is interesting because dimensionally, or we two different Earths at least are being created.
Yes.
And on the planet that the black belt barrister resides, doing business as a barrister, he may well be right. But it's not a planet that you or I live on.
Yes.
So, yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say that is an important mindset one, isn't it? Just to have the mindset that we don't just live in one world or entity, we live in sort of two or three, and what goes for that one doesn't necessarily go for your one here. So that's a change in mindset I think we can all do with learning.
There's a brilliant analogy that David Icke makes. I think I've also made it, but I probably was inspired by his analogy, to be honest. That you imagine that the planet is a TV set, and you can do this with your own brain as well. That TV set can be programmed to BBC One, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5. So people like the Black Belt Barrister are on BBC One, and BBC One has its own rules and regulations. So if what he's saying that these are the rules and regulations of BBC One, then he's 100% right. Except that people like me and you and this lady on Richard Vobes and more Richard Vobes himself are not tuned to BBC One.
No.
It's that simple.
Yeah, that's a brilliant analogy. So, so David, tell me, if people are pretty new to this, all of this, where's a good place to start moving start moving off BBC One, to use that analogy, onto our own station?
Well, okay. So the question is, how do people switch channels?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's put the horse before the cart. And before we look at how, let's look at why. So why would you even want to switch channels is the first question that I would ask. I mean, yours is a very good question, but in order to answer your question better, I need to answer the preliminary question first.
Okay.
Why would you want to switch channels? Well, and I'm sure you can relate to this because I certainly can. First of all, you know that BBC One is not working for you, using this and continuing this analogy.
Yes.
BBC One sounds like gobbledygook, and every day you understand the broadcasts less and less, and it's beginning to sound like Chinese, double Dutch. It makes less and less sense. And you're wondering why you even are tuned to BBC One. And then it occurs to you that maybe there are other channels, because you've heard that there were 1 million or 2 people marching during lockdown in London. You've heard that maybe there are people standing in the park and discussing freedom and resistance to tyranny. Maybe you've heard that a friend of yours never got in, and you always wondered about his sanity, but now it's beginning to make sense because you've heard on the grapevine that people are unexpectedly and no one is coming forward with a cause. You're beginning to feel that governments don't have our best interests at heart, that Joe Biden is senile and he's anti-American, that Rishi Sunak, although he's not senile, is anti-British, anti-English, certainly. And Macron is anti-French, and Sanchez is anti-Spanish. So you're thinking, how can all these leaders be against the people in their own country, you know? And
yes,
so you're starting to think that life and information on BBC One is not just garbled, but it's positively toxic. So that inspires you to want to look for other channels. So you start to adjust the dial. You go out there and you meet other people, and you also hear that maybe maybe the system is warped, rigged, and that there's somebody going around saying that taxes just go to fund and warfare. And now you think, right, that's it. I'm out of here. Okay, now, physically, you're not going to go anywhere. So this is going to be essentially a mental journey, a journey of the mind and a journey of the heart. So now you've got the reasons to switch channels. So what are you going to do? Well, I've already hinted at the answer. You're going to look for people who are further down that road and who've tuned in to another station. Stations such as TNT, Radio, International, Truth News Talk. Channels online such as UK Column. Circulations such as The Light Paper. Meetings such as Stand in the Park, SITP, and Rebels on Roundabout. Health workers that are standing for health freedom. Doctors that are standing in truth. I would say lawyers that are standing in truth, but there's hardly any of them, to be quite honest. They are a pitiful bunch, most lawyers, to be honest. And the odd inspirational MP, literally like Andrew Bridgen.
Yes.
And a health worker, Dr. Campbell, John Campbell, who, although he doesn't fully embrace the new channel, he's definitely beginning to unhook from BBC One.
Yes. Yeah, he was fully indentured to that a couple of years ago, wasn't he? But certainly no more.
Absolutely. So, and you find out that there are dedicated freedom festivals, the Freedom Network. I mean, you interviewed Karen Dodd.
Yes.
There's Carry On Camping, which has 3 or 4 events a year, which is the most off-grid campsite of them all. Then there are other freedom-friendly, in other words, a mixed bag of people. Some still tuned to BBC One, but some definitely coming out to another channel. And gradually you realize that there is another mindset that's available to embrace, and another set of people with our own problems and our own egos, but at least we are more accepting of people who are disrupting in their own lives and helping to disrupt generally systemic propaganda and the imposition, top-down imposition, top-down tyranny. So even if we have a clash, because ultimately we are on the same page, even if we're having trouble dotting the I's and crossing the T's, we must always remember that, you know, just it's the same with the globalists. Some globalists hate each other's guts, but they come together for a purpose. And we have to realize that, you know, sometimes even with the best will in the world, there will be friction, there will be chaos, there will be clashes, and these need to be ironed out. Now, the difference is the globalists have been ironing out their differences and agreeing to disagree for a long time. We're new to this game. And so another of my soon to be VIPs, very important purposes, is to remind the freedom movement that it's okay to disagree.
Yes. Yeah,
it's okay to disagree. And because we're all like super excited to have found each other and super excited to be part of a movement that will ultimately save humanity, sometimes we can get carried away.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get carried away not just by our own self-importance, but our own, you know, it's the narcissism again. That's all it is. It's this toxic effect. You know, we have to keep shaking it off because it's like, you know, we grew up in it and we're still carrying it. Much as we would hate to admit it, we're still carrying it. And all we have to do though is recognize it and just say, you know, oh, please excuse the over enthusiasm. I think I just had an attack of narcissism. Sorry about that. And then, oh, that's fine. I get it because I just had one the other day. You know, have a giggle about it, you know, and move on.
Great advice. There's a lot of disagreements in the freedom movement, and unfortunately, it's creating divisions and people sort of refusing to speak to those people or that person. But yeah, I think it's important, like you say, we need to put our differences aside, like the globalists do. So yeah, very important message, that one. Thank you.
You're welcome. I do get when people disagree. We all disagree all the time about many, many, many things, and that's natural. I find it harder to comprehend when people literally turn their back on each other simply because they've disagreed. And I think in extreme cases, I can only postulate that some kind of mental parasite has got into the equation. Because I don't think. And I know that tribes have had, you know, sort of battled to the death over disagreement. And I know this is as ancient as the hills. But then so is this what David Icke calls the Wetiko, and the ancient Native Americans called it a kind of a cosmic worm that gets in and makes you not only think wrong thoughts, but do wrong things and have pathological attitudes towards anyone that doesn't agree with you or see things your way. And this is one of the things that we really actually need to address before we can move on individually and as a collective. What is it that, you know, they very blithely call it hate speech? Well, this hate speech, which is a dangerous concept in itself, because there's a very, very thin dividing line between passionate expression and so-called hate speech. And so what we have to look at is that line where passion spills over into hate. And we have to examine ourselves more and more. And one of the ways that we can prevent the encroachment of the cameras and the rules and the police into our lives is to make sure that we remain passionate, but not seen to be hateful.
Yes. Yeah, very good advice. So where do we go from here? Oh, have I asked that question already?
Where do we go from here? I think you kind of have, but could you break it down to something more
um,
specific?
well, you sort of run some courses, don't you? And you seem to have sort of talks and courses coming out all of the time. Yeah, maybe we can sort of discuss where we can sort of find those courses and how we get people can find you, really.
Okay. What I do is I cater both for people who would like to switch channels but have no funds at all. They're counting pennies. So what I do is I go around the country and I give by donation talks to people like that.
Mhm.
If they have nothing, then they put nothing in the pot, and that's fine. That's perfect. I also put dozens and dozens of free to watch videos and free to download resources on my website, which is The People's Lawyer, all lowercase, UK.com. That confuses people because they think it's .uk. No, it's The People's Lawyer UK, because there's an American with the same name, .com. So it is a .com, but there's The People's Lawyer UK in front of it. If people want to dig deeper, study more, and they have some funds, then they can do my course. It's a paid course. It's how I earn a living.
Mhm.
And they can do it in two different ways. They can simply purchase all the materials and study in their own time and at their own pace. And that's 120 quid. But the materials are very, very comprehensive and substantial. It's not like reading a little book, which would only be worth 25 quid, to be honest. It's a lot more than that. It's an entire book with resources and audios. And if they want all that plus access to live Q&As, ongoing, so there's again no time limits. They just join as and when they can, and we do 3 a month. Then they pay another 120 quid, so that's a total of 240. There's a way to bring the price down if you join in groups.
I see.
And they get all that, all the materials, the audios, and access to live Q&As on Zoom, plus access to 2 Telegram groups. One is course participants, where we discuss relevant issues brought up by the course and other relevant things. And then there's a social group where people can post anything they like and just get to know each other better and put in stuff that's not directly relevant to universal law. The course is designed to promote confidence in changing channels to the freedom channel, if you like, competence, resilience, and articulateness, eloquence. The caveat is that you may well be ready, but if you're living in a household where you've got one spouse or partner or parents or children who are going to literally make your life hell if you make a move towards freedom, then we need to add a note of caution there. And I think I mentioned this on Delegate Poll, and he was quite severe on me for suggesting this. I said that, divorce is not out of the question, really. It all depends. Now, obviously, I'm not saying, divorce now and do the course later, because that's ridiculous. But what I am saying is that by all means, consider doing the course, but bear in mind that even if you do the course and you do it discreetly and no one knows you're doing it, if you activate it, then eventually people will know that something has changed, and there may well be internal consequences. So we have to be, everything is contextual. The course may make black and white perfect sense, but the color is provided by your own environment and your own circumstances. So a little note of caution there, but I think that's it. Oh, and of course,
Yeah.
I did mention it en passant, the book. If you are minded to bring your boys and girls out of the schooling system, and I'm now describing the schooling system as a major crime against humanity. It's even the NSPCC say that some lessons now are in effect non-contact child sex abuse.
Yes.
totally inappropriate lessons.
Yeah.
I don't focus on that specifically. I have just upgraded my book to bring it up to date. I don't make too much of that because it's all too easy. The system could say, "Oh, it's all right. We've cancelled SRE, sexual and religious education, or sexual and relationships education, and everything's hunky dory now in the classroom." But it's not. There's still indoctrination. There's still menticide, which is the killing of the human spirit. Children should not be sitting still when they have boundless energy. So this is a major point of vector of child abuse. So, and in most schools now, they just learn that they have to stay quiet, put up and shut up. So the book is something that I promote separately. School No Place for Children, available boo on Amazon. And if you don't like Amazon, and who can blame you, you can get it directly from the website, and I will send it to you personally.
That sounds good. School No Place for Children. It's a fantastic title. Does exactly what it says on the tin type of title. And yeah, it's a must read, really. If you've got children, I'd suggest.
Well, the thing is, what I would say is that when you ask me, what's the way forward, I would say that first base really is to get boys and girls, or to stop boys and girls going to, or get them out of school. That is how we minimize collateral damage and we maximize our chances of a brighter future. It's the schooling system, obviously the program as well, but it's the schooling system that does the most damage and produces the most toxic group think. And it's that group think that is the danger. We all think of people like Schwab and Gates, Fauci, Blair, etc., as the threat. No, they're not, because there's only 3, 4, 5, 10 of them. The real existential danger is groupthink, that it infects your family, friends, and neighbors. And to minimize that, we have to keep boys and girls away from it and safe at home. It's a no-brainer, really, so that is a good note to round off a talk about future-proofing, basically.
And there are sort of facilities out there now, aren't there? Places like Hope, Sussex. You do bridge lessons down there, don't you?
I do. And so what I've done is I still talk, but now rather than talking about bringing in the future, I go back into the matrix. I've pulled out my matrix activity, which was bridge teaching, especially to boys and girls, to get them into a socializing card game, which is 2 against 2. So it's instant socializing. Yeah. It's not like chess. It's not 1 against 1, or every man or boy or girl for themselves. This is 2 against 2. So you're instantly in teamwork. So what I do is I go around my local counties, so Sussex and Kent at the moment, and maybe Surrey and London soon. And I bring boys and girls together, and sometimes mums and dads as well, round the same table, teaching them a game that can be a lifelong skill, and bringing the ethos that I'm promoting, which is let's all come together and have a bit of fun, playtime. Let's play. So I'm only doing it a few hours a month, but as the signs become more and more obvious that we're winning the war, and at the moment it's kind of a bit iffy, then I can do more and more playtime. At the moment, I've got to, keep working at helping humanity win the war. But as time goes by, I can play more and teach people more the joys of socialized, social fun, dynamic activity. So and obviously, since I earn a living from the course, I can afford to be a bridge instructor or facilitator for free. Well, I say for free. Hope Sussex, they do pay me. I've got to travel quite a way to them, so they cover my travel expenses. So it's not free, but it's low cost.
Okay.
But sometimes it is free as well. It depends on how far I have to travel.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. And yeah, Hope Sussex is, for people who don't know about it, is a fantastic homeschooling hub. But they also put on festivals and talks and seminars and activities such as yours. It's a really great place, isn't it?
It's 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 going to be a world leader. It's thriving. It struggled in its infancy because they had some, let me just say, unfortunate conceptions about how to be alternative. You know, their intent was always fantastic, 100%, and I love them to bits, and I always will. But I had to come in and say, look, guys, if you express who you are and what you do in a certain way, they're going to come for you. So don't mention the word school and don't mention the word education. You're a community, you're serving the community, and you're a hub. And thankfully, they've embraced that concept. And now I think they're, well, famous last words, but they're not getting visits. They are regarded as safe, a community hub. It just so happens that boys and girls can go for learning experiences. And this is another way to help people embrace the future. We have to change our use of language.
Yes, that's a whole different topic, isn't it?
It is.
Yourself talked about that. People like Eleanor Salisbury and various others as well. Fascinating subject, a bit beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. But it's the hidden meaning of words is just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all part of the package deal known as becoming more conscious. So rather than being an empty vessel that just repeats what the system has told us to say and told us when and how to say it, we go, no. So it works on every level. No, I'm not taking your pills and potions. No, I'm not using your phraseologies. No, I'm not having your narcissists as my best friends. No, I'm not going to do a job just because you say I have to earn a living and pay the bills. I'm going to redefine everything. And this is what we all have to do. And we start in a humble, small way. Remember that I started this 4 decades ago. So I've got an advantage over most people. And I have to remind myself of that. And when I suffer from lack of patience, I have to give myself a little bit of a kicking because, you know, I have to say, come on, David, this man or woman, last week they were 100% in the matrix. Give them a break.
Yes, yeah, very wise words yet again. So I'm thinking that your resources, your courses, your resources are a very good starting point for people wanting to switch channels, to carry on this analogy. So I'm certainly going to leave all of your contact details in the description box below this video when it comes out. Again, you've answered this in part. Future plans. Actually, before future plans, are you going to the Uprise and Shine event in next week? It is next.
Well, I haven't been formally invited, but I may creep in the back door.
Sounds good. So again, another fabulous event in London. For people who don't know, it's actually next weekend, the 2nd and 3rd of December. I think that is, but I'll leave sort of details in the description box below on that as well. But yeah, future plans, David.
Well, future plans are to keep on doing what I'm doing because I get so many people, bless them, who send me emails saying, David, thank God for you and thank God that you're doing what you're doing. That's very humbling. When people give you that level of credit, there's nowhere to go. It actually obliterates the ego because it's so overwhelmingly positive that there's no need to pretend anymore. All you can do is say, thank you. So the plans are to keep doing what I'm doing and keep feeling the appreciation of others, because that's your barometer, that's your That's your compass, that you're on the right path. It's to keep badgering people, to keep reminding them that there's every reason to come out of the system. There's every reason to feel that it's much safer than you realize, that being stuck in the system is all about being in Plato's cave, which is full of shadows. It's not real. So the talks will continue. They're generally now by invite. I don't go out in search of talks. I just wait for the invites to come in. And I think as the vice tightens, with this potential new outbreak, I think the talks will come back in, as they'll probably have to go underground again. But we now have a network of venues that are freedom friendly. I might start work on a book, the follow-up to School No Place for Children, which is something like, the Matrix, No Place for Grown-Ups, something like that. And which would be a follow-up. The course, keep on doing the course, but also keep on enjoying life insofar as keep playing. Well, I don't play bridge; I just teach it. Table tennis, because it's all very well, fighting the good fight, but we've got to take time out and have some fun.
Yes.
So keep on having fun and enjoying what life has to offer, and keep being the change that I would like to see. So just to sum it all up, I got an email recently from a woman that said, David, as a result of hearing you, I think it was on Delingpole, she said, you've ignited a spark in me.
Brilliant.
So if I can continue to ignite sparks, job done. I don't like the word job, but you know what I mean. Then I'm on it.
I do. Yeah.
In a nutshell, continuing to ignite sparks.
Okay. Well, I think you've ignited a spark in me for sure, and I'm sure in viewers as well. Many viewers watching this as well, because it's been an absolutely fantastic sort of discussion we've had here. I think you've probably given us your final thoughts, but have you got any final thoughts?
Final thoughts.
Yeah.
I think to all those that recently watched my interview on Delingpole, which was probably because he's got a very broad demographic. Well, he's got a very wide demographic. Just look at how he started out as very skeptical and cynical almost. And by the end of the interview, he was smiley and more accepting of the possibility that there may well be an alternative to BBC One.
Yes.
So for all those that are kind of on the fence, remember that the fence is being ripped down as we speak. And so that choice, make it soon, make it a conscious choice, make it a free choice, because if you don't make that choice soon, that choice will be made for you, and it could go either way. So make your choice soon, and know that if you make a positive pro-human choice, the future is looking good. Through the dark clouds, I'm not saying that there aren't any dark clouds. There's plenty of dark clouds, but behind those dark clouds, the sun always shines. Always. It never stops shining.
Yes. Well, that's a good message for hope. And all we need to do is carry on in the direction we're going. And yeah, what a fantastic message. So, yeah, I think it's probably a good place to sort of end the interview. Thank you very much for your time, David. And like I say, I'll leave details about where people can get in touch with you, about your courses and other resources. That will be in the description box below here. So do check that out. I'm sure many people will be fired up, as indeed I am, to look into your work more. And David, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. And You know, all the best to everyone out there, because together we can do this. No, honestly, no question about it. Together, not separately, together.